Yeah, hello everybody. Again, thank you for joining AnalyticsCreator, the virtual classroom about data preparation 20 times faster for your data warehouse projects. I will do a very short intro. Some of you know this intro, of course. Sorry about that. But I will show just at least a few pages. And after that, Dimitri will start with the demo. So at first, I want to explain a little what is AnalyticsCreator, what it's for. Data, it's a data automation technology for analytical applications for experts and also without experts. It works with generating source code instead of programming manually. AnalyticsCreator orchestrates the life cycle of data warehouses and data marts. It's for the design process, the development, the change process, and also the deployment. AnalyticsCreator replaces old-fashioned ETL tools, and it's up to 10 times faster and less costs. I share now some testimonials for customers. One of our big customers is Robert Bosch. One of the BI lead told us that he saved at least 80% of timing costs by using AnalyticsCreator data warehouse projects. They use the AnalyticsCreator and mainly for IT controlling. And also my muesli. My muesli is also here today. Thank you for joining us. And my muesli started with AnalyticsCreator, I think now 3 years ago. They had no data warehouse. They have no experience with data warehousing. And AnalyticsCreator helped them to do everything by themselves. They had just 4 days training for the team, and they have done the whole data warehouse project by themselves without any support of external resources. This is a customer in the real estate domain. They have a lot of legal entities, and so therefore they must implement a lot of sources, data sources. And at least they reported to us that they was 20 times faster than estimated to create the ingest store or the staging layer for the grow up the data warehouse. So the most important USPs for AnalyticsCreator is that we are focusing 100% of the Microsoft stack. We want to be the best in this area, so we support anytime all features in the Microsoft stack. AnalyticsCreator is a pure design time tool. It's very different to others. There is no vendor lock, there is no runtime. And what is important, the code runs also without AnalyticsCreator. We support high sophisticated modeling approaches such as Data Vault 2.0, the Kimball dimensional approach, and also some own ideas and mixed approaches. You have the ability to create your own add-ons. There's an open repository where we store all the modeling data. You can read that out and store also your own ideas or your own metadata there. And you can set up own applications on AnalyticsCreator to generate whatever you want. Yeah? We can give you later on some examples. There are also some examples on the wiki.analyticscreator.com. So one of the most use cases I want to share with you, of course, The greenfield case is a very common approach. There is nothing before, and yeah, this is I would say one of the most cases AnalyticsCreator will be used. And also the same is to modernize existing data warehouse. Yeah? So the reason is that maybe some new ideas are coming from the business that have to be implemented, and the old architecture have not the stability that do the changes. So yeah, you have to use an reverse engineering approach, for example, or to grow up the architecture, or to set up AnalyticsCreator on a deeper level on the staging layer to build up, for example, new layers of the data warehouse or data marts. Yeah. Yeah, and also a lot of customers have an old Microsoft stack, and they want now to shift the old architecture of Microsoft from SSIS to automated version with using store procedures and those things. This is the thing how we used it, and also, for example, there are many customers which don't want to use the SAP business intelligence stack. They want to use a modern approach, a much cheaper approach, a fast approach with Microsoft. We have a very good support for SAP by also using the very common Theobald connector. And yeah, there are many special features in AnalyticsCreator for SAP. There you find also some presentation and demos on YouTube. Yeah, and there is also a big shift to the cloud and of course to Azure. Many customers want to handle the data warehouse in Azure, and so there are some ways and supports to do this very fast. And this is one thing what we support very good. So when you design a data warehouse with AnalyticsCreator, you don't have to care in the most cases if you do this for the cloud or you do this on premise. The main approach is to do your modeling, and after that you say you want to deploy it for Azure or for on-premise. Yeah. And what we've seen also in the last time more and more to use a near real-time approach, that the data from the source, the ERP, is loading very fast to the data platform, that the reports are in real time. Yeah. This is also a thing what we support. Yeah, this is from my side. I have, of course, a lot of other pages, but I think we start right now, and I give the token to Dimitri.
Okay, thank you, Peter. Okay, wait a moment, I will present my screen. One moment. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Can you confirm?
Yeah.
Thank
you.
Okay. Okay, then let's start. I will create the new repository, and what we will show you today. But let's start. Okay, I will create the new repository. We'll call it staging demo. Okay, the new repository will be created. Well, what we will show you today. The first question, why do we need the data warehouses? Sure, you already know the answer. You can collect the data, store them in your data warehouse. You can store the changes in your data. You can transform your data, and you can prepare the data for different front-end programs, for example, for different reporting platforms and so on. But one of the main purposes of the data warehouse is to collect the data and to store the data changes. Therefore, usually every data warehouse has several layers. For example, staging layer or persistent staging layer. This layer will be used to collect the data from the different sources and to store the changes. Therefore, because sometimes your data sources, they have no opportunity to store the history of the changes. But in the data warehouse, when we collect data, for example, every night, we can compare the imported data with already stored data, detect the changes in the data, and store the data change history. Therefore, we can have access in the data warehouse to the old versions of our data. And sometimes, for example, you have different data sources, and you will create the data warehouse, but you still don't know what you will have at the end. Which data you will process in your data warehouse, which structure should have your data in the data mart layer. You don't know which data stars you will have, but you will create your the data warehouse. And in this case, you can create the staging data warehouse, which will collect all data which you can reach. You can collect all data stored in your source systems, in your data sources, and different ERP systems and SAP and so on. You can already now collect the data and store them in your data warehouse. You can historicize the data, and later, when you will know what you will do with your data, you can create the core, core and data mart layers in other data warehouses, but you will use the data already stored and prepared and stored in your staging data warehouse. That means, this architecture is used in many big projects. For example, some big companies like Bosch, they have such staging data warehouse. For example, Bosch has the system called Red Lake. This is some kind of staging data warehouse. There are many databases belong to this Red Lake, but this databases, this data warehouse will be used only to collect the data from the different sources and to provide the universal access to the data for every other data warehouse. For example, if I will create my own data warehouse, I cannot access the data directly from the data source. I should I will get the data from this staging data warehouse, containing all data and will be used as the proxy interface between the data warehouses and the data sources. And as I said, it is really very interesting and very important to to create such staging data warehouses as soon as possible. I mean, for example, imagine right now you have no idea how or what you will see in the data mart layer of your data warehouse, which data stars, for example, you will prepare, but you can already now collect your data and historicize the data, and later you can decide what you will do with your historicized data, because the change history is as soon I mean, it is really interesting to start to historize, for example, your data as soon as possible, because in this case the history will be stored in your the history of the changes will be stored in your data warehouse, and you can later decide how you will use the data stored in the data warehouse. And using AnalyticsCreator, it is very easy to create such staging data warehouse. Let's do it. I created the new repository, and let me add the new connector. At my computer, I have AdventureWorks database, and we will use this AdventureWorks database as a data source in our data warehouse. Okay, I have to add a connection string, AdventureWorks. Okay, test connection. Well, and now I will create the staging database using this AdventureWorks database. Well, I will start the data warehouse wizard. I will select AdventureWorks database. There are the tables which I have in my AdventureWorks database. And imagine I will import every table from this database into my data warehouse. Okay, no problem. I selected all tables, and I will import every table and historicize every table. Okay. Would you do it manually for every table? Maybe you will need, I don't know how many time, 1 hour maybe. You would create the reporting tables in your data warehouse. You should create integration service packages to import the data. You have to create the historization procedure for every table based on the structure of the table and so on. And I think 1 hour is very it's too few. I mean, you need more than 1 hour for every table, maybe 1 day sometimes for every table. In case of AnalyticsCreator, you can do it in several seconds, okay, in several minutes. Well, we got every table from our database. Okay, here we can decide how the tables will be called in our data warehouse. Okay, we can decide if we will create the calendar dimensions, snapshot dimensions, or okay, we don't need them at the moment. Okay, anyway, let's click on finish, and now AnalyticsCreator will create the staging data warehouse for us. What is important? The staging data warehouse will be used only to import and to historicize your data. And later, you can create, I don't know, the business-specific data warehouses containing only their core and data mart layers, which will access the data, which will get the data from this staging data warehouse. And in this case, instead to import the data from the staging data warehouse into the, I don't know, the data mart data warehouse, you can use the direct connector of AnalyticsCreator, and it is not necessary. It will be not necessary to import the data from the staging data warehouse into the data mart data warehouse. You can use direct connector to create the views. But anyway, it is possible later to create the data warehouses which will use the staging data warehouse as a data source. And using AnalyticsCreator, you can do it. Well, we created our staging data warehouse, and you can see it took about how long? 3 minutes. And you can see here are our data sources. This is a staging layer where we import data into, and this is a persistent staging layer where to historicize the data. And well, what do we have? What should we do now? Okay, let's create the deployment package. Wait a moment. Let me check the packages which were created. Do you see we have 10 different import packages because we in the data warehouse wizard we decided that every package can contain not more than 10 tables. Okay, we have 10 historicizing packages here, and okay, we have one workflow package to call all other packages in the correct order. Let's create. Wait a moment. Deployment package. Okay, we can call our data warehouse staging demo. Why not? Okay, and now I will create the deployment package. I will create the packages, and what I have to do, I will create the deckpack file, deploy the deckpack file. I will deploy SSS configuration containing the configuration of my integration service packages as a stable, and save and deploy. Well, and now AnalyticsCreator will generate the Visual Studio solution containing all containing the files which you need to deploy your data warehouse, and simultaneously we will deploy our data warehouse into the staging demo database on our server. Okay, now the packages will be created, and I hope it will be. Okay, I hope you understood the idea which I am trying to explain. It is really very easy to create such staging data warehouses using AnalyticsCreator. If you only will import the data from your data sources as is and to historicize them, you can do it using AnalyticsCreator very, very easy. Sure, you can add more logic into your staging data warehouse. For example, you can restrict the data which you import. You can add different filters for the import. You can use this differential data loading. Okay, in this case, you have to perform some changes in the data warehouse model manually, but of course, it is possible. You can, for example, modify the historization procedure. For example, at the moment, every table will be historized using slow changing dimension 2 mechanism, but you can decide for different fields, for example, that for specific fields, you can use slow changing dimension 1 algorithm and so on. You can modify this the data warehouse which we generated, no problem. Please, but as I said, the draft data warehouse can be created in few minutes, and it is really very, very interesting. Of course, later, for example, imagine you will add more tables to your data warehouse. No problem. You can do it every time using data warehouse wizard, or you can import or define the import and historization manually. This data warehouse, staging data warehouse, can be extended later by the new sources without any problem. And what we can do additionally, for example, your sources were changed, some fields were added to the tables, or some field types were changed. Such changes can be tracked by AnalyticsCreator automatically. We have the specific functionality. You should click with the right mouse button on the connector. Okay. And for example, if you will detect the changes, you can click on refresh used or refresh all sources, and the metadata stored in the data warehouse will be compared with the metadata in your data source, and the changes will be detected, and all data warehouse objects will be modified according to the changes which were found. Okay, let's take a look on the deployment package which we just generated. Moment. Okay, open analytics. Sorry, project. Okay, deployment. Is it? No, this is the wrong one. This is the right one. Okay, this is our project. Let's take a look on the workflow package. Here you can see this is a workflow package. You can see, for example, first will be the import package will be started, then the according historizing package will be started, and so on. Every process will, all processes will be started parallel. And okay, this is pretty simple integration service package which was generated by AnalyticsCreator, and there is nothing specific. Okay, we can take a look on every on the import packages. For example, this is first import package. Let's take a look on it. Okay. Well, this is pretty simple import package. For example, for every table which we import, we have here the separate container where we have here the different steps. First, we start the logging, we truncate the import table, then we import the data, we load the data from the data source, we calculate the number of data rows, sometimes we perform the transformations, and then we are trying to use the bulk insert to fill to import the data, and in case something is wrong, we perform the row by row insert to find out the errors, and the errors will be stored in the specific in the special error table. Nothing specific. This is pretty simple integration service package, and it is understandable how the import works. Okay, then we update statistic, and then we add additional log information about the data import. Well, then historization is more easier. For every historization, we generate the storage procedure, and here in integration service package, we only execute the storage procedures to historicize the data. In the next version of AnalyticsCreator, instead to generate the integration service packages, you can generate the Azure Data Factory pipelines, where you can do the same. You will import the data using copy pipeline of Microsoft, and you will historicize the data using execute storage procedure pipeline. And in this case, you can, instead to use integration service packages, you can use active data factory pipelines. Especially, it's interesting if you will deploy your data warehouse on Azure, and if you will create such staging data warehouse in Azure. In this case, surely Azure pipelines are more interesting than integration service packages, but the packages will can be used together with Azure too. You can, for example, start if the most of your data source located on premise, you can execute the packages on premise too, and store the data on in your Azure data warehouse, but launch the packages locally, or you can deploy the packages into the data factory and they will work too. Well, okay. I think I'm ready. You saw how easy it is to create the staging data warehouse using AnalyticsCreator. If you have questions, I can answer them. Okay. Peter, can you?
Yes.
Okay, I mean,
if anybody have a question which is depending to this, what you've seen, or something else, time, yeah, that we can show you something.
It's pretty easy approach to create such staging data warehouse, but would you should you create such data warehouse manually, you would need I would say several weeks to perform the same to create the same data warehouse manually. Therefore 20 times faster, I would say it is too less. I mean, we can tell 200 times faster or 2000 times faster. So it is really very easy to create such data warehouse using AnalyticsCreator. What is important, this data warehouse can be used as a data source for other data warehouses, and it is really very easy. Instead to load the data from the data sources, your next data warehouses can use a staging data warehouse, and you can for example, let me show you how it works. I will create the new data warehouse. For example, I don't know, test one. Oops, test one. Okay. One moment. And in this test one data warehouse, I will create the new connector, add connector of the type direct. Direct means the data warehouse is located on the same server where the data source is located, or I can reach the data source database using linked server. In our case, our source database, which we just generated, refresh. This is this, wait a moment, staging demo database. Okay, sorry. The staging demo database. Cool. Connector staging demo. Example, save. Now I have the staging demo database. I can call the data warehouse wizard, and you see I have the same table. They are all my tables which I have in my staging database. And for example, I will import employer, I don't know, employer department, employee department history, and so on. I can do it, but I will only import. Because I import already historized data, I will only import them and create, I don't know, 3 dimensions. Let me do it. Okay. You can see okay, this is now my new data warehouse, and there are the sources, the source tables stored in my staging database. And here, instead to import the data again into the data warehouse, in the new data warehouse, I created the views. You can see there are the views which were created by AnalyticsCreator. We load the data in the views, or we access the data from staging demo STG department table. Very well. Okay, maybe what we have to change, we could say this is a full historization. Okay, this is the only thing what we have to change, because AnalyticsCreator don't know if the data which we import are the historized data or not. Maybe later we can automatically recognize the historized data. We would implement this opportunity. Okay, and anyway, I can create the data warehouse and use the data stored in my staging data warehouse as a data source without to import the data. In our case, this data warehouse which we just created, this is a pure logical data warehouse. There are no data here in this data warehouse. You can see there are only views in this data warehouse. Every transformation here, this is just the view. And you can create the staging data warehouse containing the data, and all other data warehouses can be pure logical data warehouse. Or you can materialize, of course. For example, if I tell here I will persist this transformation dim department, I can add the persisting, and okay, sure, it is possible to persist the data. Yes. Okay, synchronized data warehouse. Okay, you can persist the data if you need, but it is possible really to create the pure logical data warehouses in this case. Well, do anybody have any question? Then Peter, you can continue.
Yeah, I would say maybe here we have now 45 minutes for the demo. Maybe you have some additional things you can show up this layer. So maybe to grow up a data warehouse in next layers, if you would like. Or what is suitable for that case?
I think, Peter,
Is this enough?
It's enough. First,
Okay.
the main idea of this demo was to show how easy it is to create such staging data warehouses. And the second idea is it is really sometimes very interesting to divide your data warehouse environment or your business intelligence environment over several data warehouses. I mean, sometimes we have there are a lot of projects with very huge, big data warehouse containing all layers. But sometimes it is interesting to spread your BI environment over at least two data warehouses. The first data warehouse containing staging and persistent staging layer, and more data warehouses which will use the staging data warehouse as a data source for the specific business purposes. And this architecture is really, I think, much easier and efficient than the huge monolith data warehouse. And it is really sometimes interesting to prepare the staging and persistent staging data warehouse in advance. I mean, you don't. It is not necessary to know what you will do with your data. You should store every data which you can reach in your staging data warehouse, and later you can decide what you will do with your data, because the data storage price now is very low. You can store the data without to know what you will do with the data, but you can really create such staging data warehouses without to know what you will do with your data. Data should be stored. It is bad to when the data will be okay, when you lose your data. I mean, the data should be stored, and the data themselves has a specific value, and it is really interesting to store every data which you can reach and which you can store. Okay, I think that's
okay. Thanks a lot, Dimitri. So I would ask you again if you have some questions to Dimitri about this case. We will answer, no problem.
okay. When there is no,
if there is no question anymore, then we can close this session. Yeah, thanks a lot for joining us today. I hope you have time next week on Friday. This is the 2nd July. On the 2nd July, there is a very important demo on Friday. It's about Azure deployment. We have done there, a new version. This new version is public in the next week, and therefore you can build your data warehouse on the Azure Data Factory. And Dimitri will show next week how this will work, and I hope you will join also next week. Okay, thanks a lot. Have a nice weekend and see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Ciao.
Ciao.